Rich, Tennessee Homestead. How the heck are you? Me, I'm doing pretty good today. Other than the fact I may have to edit this thing because my lighting is terrible. I can't fix that. And it's primarily due to some severe thunderstorms that have been rolling through here for the last few hours. So I may have to piece this thing together because I've had power dropping in and out and so forth. So yeah. Oh, but first let me show you something. I had a very dear friend send me a coffee cup. Look at that, from Florida. Yeah, yeah. Her and her family went down there for a little vacation at Disney World, taking the grandkids, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, they were having she brought back this cup. So Florida, kind of neat. And it actually, is fishbowl size, which I need for morning coffee. I did let her know that this little spoon here that comes with that, it's going to end up in a drawer, because let me tell you something, that thing, before I've had my first cup of coffee in the morning, I am so out of it, I would end up with a spoon hanging out of my eyeball, which would not be good. But let me take a little sip of coffee here while I'm at it. So anyway, this is going to be kind of a continuation of the barn chat. I told you folks that I had flipped through a trade magazine and had all this stuff piling out at me, and thought, really? And it was too much to get into the barn chat, because that barn chat would have been an hour and a half long. So I went through and got the kind of some of the highlights of some of the craziness going on out there, which makes me feel really good, because for years I've been saying the world has really gone nuts. And it's beginning to prove that to be true. Whew, some of the things going on makes you stand back and go, what? Are they serious? Are they doing this? Really? Yeah, they are, folks. And I'm going to bring you up to date on a few of the things. So let's get with it here in just a moment. Let's get through this, and I'm going to try to do this in a more humorous fashion, because I got to be honest with you, this is serious enough to bring tears to your eyes. You remember me telling you about the EPA lost that lawsuit in the barn chat, to where they were violating their own laws, regulations, yada yada, by approving stuff without doing their proper due diligence. Okay. Yeah, apparently that wasn't the only case. This one hasn't been filed yet because they just really found out about it. I'm going to read this one to you because it's a little long, but I want you to catch this. It seems that the scientists at the University of California, San Diego and Sapphire Energy have completed their first outdoor field trial sanctioned by the U.S. You got it. Environmental Protection Agency, for genetically engineered algae. Wow, isn't that wonderful? I'm sure they had all kinds of safeguards in place, didn't they? No, it doesn't look that way. In a series of experiments funded by the U.S. Department of Energy, researchers tested the genetically engineered strain of algae in outdoor ponds and under real-world conditions. Yeah, according to these folks, that the study, along with the research development of this GMO algae, was primarily for biofuels. Okay. I'm sure the EPA is right on top of it, right? Yeah. No, they're not. Okay, let's go on. In occurring, done these tests ahead of any adequate regulatory oversight, including the EPA's process to establish and update regulations for genetically engineered algae, and to protect human health and the environment. Wow, once again, forget it. We're too busy to do this. Okay, but there's some good stuff came out of this research. Yeah, it showed one thing. This study confirmed that genetically engineered microalgae grown in open ponds will escape and spread into the environment. Is that anything like these scientists going, whoops? So the stuff's out there. They don't know what it's going to do. They haven't a clue. When this stuff gets mixed in with Mother Nature, heaven only knows. Okay? And the EPA didn't even look at it. There's another potential lawsuit in the works to where 5 years down the road, the federal courts may tell the EPA, you're violating your own laws. You have to do this. With that stuff loose in the environment for 5 years, damage is done, folks. You can't put that genie back in the bottle, right? That's like the grasses that got released out in the national grassland, supposedly a national historic park kind of thing. Yeah, by these clowns. And they immediately ran to the federal government and asked for protection, so that they're not held liable for the damage this new grass is going to do. Do you think they know something we don't? Okay? And now we have algae that their study said, well, one thing we learned, that crap, you can't contain it when you put it outside. Phew, it spreads. This is in San Diego. I hope it's not a saltwater variety. There's an ocean right there, by the way. Yeah. It gets into the ocean. God knows what kind of damage it can do. That's okay. I am sure, without a doubt, that our federal government will step in and protect them from you being able to sue them. And speaking of that, let's go on to another one. Now we're in North Carolina. You folks that live in North Carolina, you need to roll up your sleeves and get after your legislature. Because what these folks are doing, there's been a bill produced by the Republican-controlled Congress to protect a company called Smithfield Foods from being sued. Yeah, you got that right, from being sued. The Democratic governor, which, thank God, bless his little heart, this is one of the few times I agree with a liberal, vetoed it. But the problem is they have the votes in the Republican-controlled legislature to override his veto. Now, I'm sure this company employs a lot of people in North Carolina. But their waste system is literally spraying liquid manure into the air that's hitting these folks' homes. They're being hosed. And they said that the odors are terrible. This is a new occurrence for them, folks, because Smithfield used to be owned and was a U.S.-owned company. Guess what happened a few years back? They're bought out by the Chinese. Yeah. Who have a terrible record on the environmental protection. And, they were trying to sell the whole bill of goods as well. This is China's way of learning the proper way to do things. I think it's the other way around. I think it's China saying, no, this is the way you're going to do it. And it is polluting the land, and it's polluting the soil. And these people have homes right now that they can't sell because they stink too bad. And they're wanting to sue these people. But the North Carolina legislature is trying to protect these people. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with, we can't afford to lose these jobs. Folks, realistically, can't afford to keep them. If that's what's going on, you need to bankrupt that Chinese company with some lawsuits. And maybe a company that is a little bit more environmentally conscious will take it over and go from there and clean up the mess. Right? Just because of jobs. Okay? You can't be doing it. I'm sorry. So, if you live in North Carolina, you might want to send off some nasty letters to your Republican legislators and tell them you veto that veto, or if you override that veto, we're going to override your butt next election. You'll be out of there. It's wrong. Think about if it moved to your neighborhood and you couldn't sell your home because of the stench and the manure in the air. Okay? Floating around. And how would you like to be covered in pig poop every time you went out in your backyard? It's a shame. Okay, and when are we going to learn? These Chinese companies? And I actually saw a short video excerpt that somebody sent me when they heard I was working on this, looking at it, on this same company, saying, oh, you know, if you look in your refrigerator, you'll find very little food coming from China, because we grow our food here. That, my friends, is the biggest lie told ever. If you shop at Walmart, most of your produce comes from China. A lot of your meat comes from China. Okay? A lot of these grocery stores get a lot of their produce and meat from places like China, South America, Central America. Okay? We get very little, and further into this, I've got a fellow I'm going to introduce you to, and he'll explain it to you. Okay, so yeah, if you live in North Carolina, time to roll up your sleeves and land right in the middle of your legislature's butts and tell them you will not even attempt to override that veto. If these people are polluting, if these people are damaging other citizens in North Carolina, those citizens should have a legal right to sue them. It's getting a little old, the government stepping in and protecting large corporations from the people of this country. It's got to stop. They're doing it over and over and over again at the federal and state levels. It needs to stop. Okay? Just my personal feelings, but I kind of think most Americans feel the same way. I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman, and the reason I read some of his works and fell in love with this guy. Well, fell in love. No. But I love his thinking. I love where he's coming from, and he applies what I always call just good common sense to the issues. Okay? And this guy's name is Richard Oswald. He's a farmer. But he was also the president of, let's see, what the heck is this thing? Oh, yeah, the American Farmers Union. He's the president of it, has been since 2010. He is a conventional farmer, farms a few thousand acres, and he's not real popular in his neck of the woods because he's not a big fan of what they're doing. Okay? And let me explain to you why. He recently had a question posed to him talking about the gentleman that was interviewing him asked him, he said there was a grizzled old farmer in the movie Corn King who said that his corn was inedible crap. His words. And that went on to make corn syrup and ethanol. It's not pleasant to see a farmer who's in his 70s who was so cynical about his work. Oswald talks, I'm going to read the whole thing to you because it's kind of long, but he basically talks about, farmers want to be called businessmen. They're not farmers. They're in the farming industry. They don't raise cattle. They are in the cattle industry, the pig industry, the chicken industry. Okay? You want to make it an industry. And he goes on to say it's not an industry. You're dealing with nature. And even though Monsanto thinks that they're manufacturing their own breeds of corn and so forth, they're not. And he even goes on, and I love it. He says they're taking genes out, they're putting new genes in, and it's all experimental. They really have never gotten it right, which is pretty much true. Okay? But the one thing that he really pointed out, and I love this, talking about that most of the food grown, most of the grains and so forth grown in this country are used for ethanol and corn syrup. Now, he grows a specialty corn that he exports it for grits, okay? But most corn and so forth is for, for ethanol and so forth. Our export, and I can confirm this, of corn and wheat and so forth is, especially corn, let's say 200 billion bushels a year. And it's been pretty consistent like that, ongoing. Okay, doesn't change much. Might go up a little bit, go down a little bit, pretty much there. Okay, our market is used to fill in the blanks of other markets, which is about 2 billion bushel a year. All right, doesn't change. So, and he pointed something out here, and I just loved the way the man put it. I want to share it with you. He says, our exports are just a small but very consistent part of our agriculture. He says, we like to say we feed the world. We don't feed the world. He said, we don't even feed the United States. And he goes on to talk about how much food we import into this country. Most of your food, folks, is imported into this country. We don't grow it here. We're growing ethanol. And we're growing corn syrup. And just to throw a little, so I love this guy's very common sense stuff. He writes for some magazines and so forth, but he had a section in here that I am going to read to you, and it's about dicamba. Because he was going, and the reason I was reading his article in depth is because he was up in the area where that orchard lost 30,000 trees due to that illegal dicamba usage. He's very up on dicamba. And I had heard bits and pieces, but I really didn't get all up on what exactly they were talking about. I know draft and the drift is a big problem with it. And there's a drift issue when you first spray it. It's very lightweight, floats around on the air. It is the type of chemicals that they're using in dicamba makes the salts in it very, very volatile. Highly volatile. Okay, and that's what he goes on to talk about is what he discovered and what he's learned in dealing with these people about that volatility. And let me read this to you. It says here, dicamba is a highly volatile 2,4-D formulation. It has been around for a long time. We had it as a kid. It was called Banville back then. And it is used off and on over time. But because of the way 2,4-D, there's basically three different types. There's the 2,4-D formulation that's highly volatile, low volatility, and amine, which has no volatility to it, which is a salt that is not supposed to be volatile at all. When I say volatile, I mean fumes. Fumes. That's the reason you can't go back in those fields for 30 days. All right? Before I continue this, let me ask you a question. Most of you live in the Midwest. If not, you know that we have 4 seasons. And springtime, and especially early springtime, the temperature swings are crazy, right? Well, that's when they're doing burnouts, where they put dicamba down the heaviest. This is when this damage was done. Okay, wild swings in temperature. They call it temperature inversions. Okay? Keep that in mind. So, when I say volatile, I mean fumes. It's the fumes off the 2,4-D that actually killed the weeds. Dicamba is really, really volatile. It's really, really deadly. And it's really, really effective. But it can lay in the field for up to 3 to 4 weeks close to the ground. And if the weather conditions change, you have a temperature inversion. It doesn't have to have wind. It'll gas off, lift off, and be carried by the breeze. Okay? And because it's really effective on weeds, there's some good reasons, I guess, for somebody might be Monsanto, to try to find a gene to insert into other plants to genetically alter them so that dicamba doesn't affect them. My friends, this turns into a gas, okay? You don't need a wind. It just is carried along by the breeze. I have noticed up here firsthand that, indeed, you look at some of these tree lines around these dicamba fields, and the trees are dying. He goes on to tell another brief story of his daughter's wedding. They were having a wedding at their farmhouse, and the farmer came through and sprayed dicamba in the field over next to him. This was this year. They had went out and purchased some landscaping bushes. Okay, they had bought a bunch of fresh flowers for in the house, you know, and he said you could smell the stuff in the air. The next day, all of his plants were dead. His trees were wilting. Now, the farmer that did it, he took ownership of it and told him to just go down to the greenhouse and buy whatever you need. Doesn't change the fact. Leaves you with a question. If you're living by these places, they don't know the health hazards of dicamba. Okay? They think they're pretty healthy. It's the most potent herbicide right now known to mankind. And we all know what the other herbicides that they've had out there have done. Okay, and damage to the human body that they have done. Eventually, this stuff is going to become public knowledge. If you're living by a field that they're using this product in, okay, and it starts affecting the landscaping and things of this nature around your home, right, and people, the public, becomes more and more aware. That's like it got out there so much about, you know, the electromagnetic fields underneath high tension lines that if you own property under a high tension line, you had a problem selling it. You had to sell it at a reduced rate because people didn't live in that electromagnetic field that has been known to cause cancer. What do you think is going to happen, folks, to the value of your property living next to a field, spraying a product that turns into a gas and floats around on the breeze? And all it needs is a change in temperature to gas off. Your property value is going to go to pot in a heartbeat. So you might want to keep that in mind. That maybe you want to bail before it gets to that point where people, the general public, really begins to understand what this stuff is. Because once they understand what it is, and they see it's being applied next door, they don't want your house. At least not what you're asking for. They might give you half. Something to think about. It's going to affect your property values. You have to get ahead of the curve. Okay. But between the barn chat and this, seriously, that covered about a few pages of the bad news coming out of the industry. Amazing. Amazing. And here this video is going as long as the barn chat. Think about it. You know, that's out of one trade magazine. One. That's scary. I am watching, because I'm keeping an eye on this stuff, I'm watching the amount of bad information flowing out on agriculture right now. There's just one hit after the other hit after the other hit. Either the EPA needs to get their act together and start doing their job, or they need to be defunded and done away with, because there's no need for them. If they are going to allow stuff like an experimental algae that nobody knows exactly what it will do in nature get released into nature because they didn't want to waste their time and go through the trouble of approving it and checking it and seeing exactly what the research was showing on it? Really? Then they are not protecting the environment. Therefore, they're not fulfilling the charter that created them and keeps them in existence. And it's maybe time for them to just go away. And maybe we'll come up with the People Protection Agency, ran and funded by the people to keep a watchdog eye on these idiots out there. And get the power of law behind us of, no, you're not going to do that. This algae is now in the environment. GMO grasses are now in the environment. Experimental stuff that has escaped off the plantation. Right? Better wake up, folks. If you live in North Carolina, your legislature is trying to protect a large Chinese business from you. Yeah. Taking away your right to due process for damages done by this company. Think about that. You, as an American citizen, are going to lose more of your rights, courtesy of your state legislature. Isn't that wonderful? I'd let them clown know you override that veto. We're going to kick your butt out of office so fast you won't know it hit you. And let me tell you something. Republicans or Democrats, it doesn't matter. They're all motivated by money. Follow the money. And I'm sure plenty's been laid down. Okay. And before the Democrats start patting themselves on the back for their governor, yes, their governor did a good thing. He's a good man. But that's what it is. It's not that he's a Democrat. Okay, because you clowns in Washington, D.C., with D's behind your name, protected the environmental, or protected Monsanto from being sued. So I don't want to hear that, Democrats. Okay, y'all the same. It's who's got the money. It's just a shame that the American public, our kids, our grandchildren, don't have the political clout that these people who are poisoning your environment do. Because they're protecting them from you. Think about that a bit. Might change the way you look at this stuff. Once again, more releases into the environment by the biotech industry. Oh, and I got one more quick one for you. This one's out of Canada. Up in Prince Albert Island, or Prince Edward Island, something like that. A company came in there and they were going to do research on salmon. But they told when they did their environmental impact study, which took a lot of stuff into account up there, and the people of the island that no, they're not doing anything with genetically modified salmon. Nothing. This was all natural. They got it all approved. Turn around a year later, 1 year. Okay. Now businesses usually have a plan when they go in and spend a lot of money. 1 year later, they did an amendment to their environmental impact study, which are pretty easy to get through. You know, you just kind of put it in there. They're wanting to build a large facility there to guess what, do what? Well, they're wanting to produce 250 million metric tons of GMO salmon on an island in an ocean. Oh, gee, there's no chance anything escaping into that, right? Might talk to them if they were like, I don't know, in the middle of a large African continent somewhere, where the closest waterway was 20, 30 miles away. Maybe then, because I don't see a salmon crawling its way to water. All right. And the people up there were kind of complaining that as little as a few months ago, before them submitting this, had told people and had put it out there that, oh no, we have no intention to do anything with genetically modified salmon. And then a few months later, they're applying for this amendment to their environmental impact study. These biotech companies, they can't tell the truth no matter what. And the faster you catch on to that, the faster you're going to understand you're being lied to, and you better get to the bottom of why. It's all about the money, folks. And they will kill you for $1. And if you think I'm lying, check the history, barefoot. Okay? And they're knee deep in this stuff. And if you don't think they don't mind getting you sick, look back at the old Common Sense versus GMO, and you'll see in there that all this nonsense, even though they hide from it, okay, every major pharmaceutical company out there in this country was helping out. Boy, what a win-win. We'll make you sick, and then we're going to sell you the pills so that you feel better. Think about that one. And they're the ones who started this mess. This is Rip Jesse Homestead. I'm going to have a nice cup of coffee. I'm going to cheer up, and we're going to move on to other videos and go from there. I'm telling you, y'all better wake up. North Carolina, you better get with it. Show them what you're made of out there. Let them know we ain't doing this. Heck no. It may not affect you, but it affects your fellow statesmen. Stand up and give them a hand and let them know you're not going to protect some Chinese company for the people of North Carolina for you destroying their environment. Ain't going to happen. Show them. Stand up. And if you're a Republican, sorry about that. You need to stand up to those Republicans and tell them, that's it. I'll be voting Democrat next time if you don't knock it off. You get their attention. Love you guys and appreciate you. Share this information with your friends, family, and anybody you know in North Carolina. And here again, this ran long. And I finally got through the articles that was bad news in this one small magazine, one industrial magazine. That's it. And I'm sure that next month there'll probably be more. It's time we wake up. Rich Jesse Homestead. You guys have a great week and a wonderful weekend. Love you guys and appreciate you.